What is up, guys? Welcome to the first review of the Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion. So I waited a little bit of time before doing the first one here, so we got plenty of cards to go over, so I'm going to jump right into it. There's going to be two scoring systems that I'm going to do. The first is just card strength. It's going to be a 0 to 5 rating, and I'll go over it real quick. 0-star card makes your deck worse than just a random card. So a number 1 or 1-star card is constructed unplayable. Now this is not to say that I'm not going to try a card that's 1-star. And I'm not going to tell you not to play a card that's 1-star. But in general, a 1-star card is constructed unplayable. 2-star card is a role player card. So this card on its own will not make it into a constructed list, but with other cards that combo and synergize with it, it definitely could. So a 2-star is a role player card. 3-star card is constructed playable. It's just good enough on its own to put in a deck at on the ladder and be serviceable. 4-star is just a staple card. Like if you're playing this class, you're most likely going to run into this card. A much stronger version of the 3-star card. And a 5-star card is a must-play card. If you are in this class and this card is in this class, you must play this card. If it's a neutral 5-star card, we're talking, you know, Dr. Boom level. There weren't many decks back in the day that didn't run Dr. Boom, and at that point he's probably a 5-star card. So the other metric we're going to do is design, and this is a little bit more subjective. Again, 0 to 5 stars. So a 0-star design card is basically what were they thinking? Like it doesn't make any sense. Either the rarity to the power level is messed up, and that's one thing that comes into design, I think, is that the rarity matters when you're looking at this stuff. So if you open a legendary and it's terrible, that's bad design. Like you should not open a legendary and be like, oh, this is just terrible, I'm never going to play this in a million years. It should be interesting. It doesn't have to be a 5-star power level card like Dr. Boom, but it should be cool. Like the old gods were really cool. There's countless, you know, legendaries that they have gotten right, but there are some that are coming in this set that we've already seen that are a bit disappointing. So we'll get to that in a bit here. A 1-star design is just bad. Bad design, you know, I don't know, you know, bad, whatever that means, could mean anything. 2 is kind of uncreative. Now, it's not necessarily bad design, it's just, you know, alright. So, it's like, whatever. 3, good design, right? Now we're getting somewhere. 4, excellent design. And 5, wow design. Like, wow, wow. Alright. You want your legendaries to be wows, right? They don't have to be good. You know, that's not important. What's important is it's like, wow, I want to make this deck with this card because it's a wow card. Alright, so we're gonna start from the bottom here. I got Hearthstone pulled up. They have all the cards in card form on their site, so you can check that out. Starting at 0 mana, we got Snow Flipper Penguin. So I'm not gonna really go over the scores. I'm gonna put the scores on the screen, but I'm not gonna like try to explain the scores, right? I'm just gonna talk about the card. So very cool, cute little card, sort of the mascot of the set. These kind of cards do end up occasionally, you know, coming into decks. Like Wisp has been played in the past. I don't know if the power level, you know, that we're at right now is gonna dictate that, but very cool little 0 mana thing. It's relevant when there's 0 mana cards in the format through things like Evolve and stuff like that. So it's always good to know about these when they're in the format. Moving on, we got a 1-drop Warlock card, Sanguine Reveler. Destroy a friendly minion and gain +2/+2. So pretty cool. It's going to combo the best with egg cards. In standard right now, that's just Devil's or Egg, but in wild you have the Nerubian Egg. Very, very powerful if you hit exactly an egg. Now what you can do in standard is play the villager guy and coin out this guy. So you have a 1/1 and a 3/3 on turn 1. That is very powerful, and that alone, that interaction alone, is worthy of looking at in constructed. Alright, moving on, we got a 1-mana warrior card, Animated Berserker. Now, I have to admit, I don't actually know if this comes into play as a 1/2 or a 1/3. If it's a 1/2, I don't like it. 1/3s for 1 in general are pretty fine on turn 1, especially if you have a ping class. Now, warrior is not a ping class, but the card does the pinging for you, so that's kind of cool, right? Like if they play... If this is a 1/3 and they play a 2/3, then it becomes a 2/2, and all of a sudden it trades evenly with their 2-drop, which is very powerful. So hard to say. Hard to say. I'm gonna say role player, but it could easily just be bad if it's a 1/2, right? I don't know. If it's a 1/2, I don't think you can play this card. All right, so here we go. Elephant in the room, right? These prince cards here. Prince Kaliesh. Prince Kaliesh. Battlecry. If your deck contains no 2-cost cards, not 2-cost creature, 2-cost cards, give all minions in your deck +1/+1. So very cool effect indeed, but it's a price to pay. In fact, it's huge. It's a huge price to pay. When I originally looked at the card, I thought it said 2-cost minions, and I immediately thought of something like Pirate Warrior. You would still be able to play War Axe. You know, you have like one 2-drop minion in the whole thing. But it's 2-cost cards, so you really have to warp your deck around this, and you have to get this basically on turn 2 for it to, really have a lot of impact on the game. So I do not like this card. The design is not a 0. I do think it's bad design though. There are going to be some zeros coming up here. All right, moving on. Ice Walker. Your hero power also freezes the target. So you play this on turn 2. You hope it lives, and then you start pinging. Like that doesn't make any sense, right? So this is more like a 4-cost card, because at that point you can play it and freeze something. In the end of the game, it's much better than a 2-drop, right? Like being able to freeze something at will when you have board control, very, very powerful. So it's a cool design for sure. I don't know if it's worth what it does, right? Because it's just such a little guy. If you ever hero power more than once in a turn, now it's pretty freaking interesting, right? And there are cards that do that in Wild. Moving on, we got Gnomish Vampire. This Warlock 2-drop says, Battlecry, remove the top card from your opponent's deck. Very cool card. Very cool. I don't think you just play this though. It's just kind of a fun card. Like, yeah, I don't see this being played. In like, it's hard to evaluate this, right? Because you can get some really good, things against Freeze Mage and stuff like that, but I don't think it makes lists. Just being, I mean, a 2-cost 2/3 is better than it has been in the past, right? It's approaching, like Raynad said, mini bot level, right? A lot of 2/2s running around, so this thing can trade into things and survive. However, I don't know if this is what you want to be doing in general. Like, there's only so many slots in your deck. You're gonna want to do cool things. This does a cool thing, but it's not the coolest thing in the world, right? Just kind of like, oh, okay, I saw a card that he can't play. So if you look at this compared to the Mage card, right? Mage got Draw Secret from your deck. Like, how much better is that card than this card? Now, obviously, all cards aren't equal. In Warlock, you got life taps. You can get more cards. You don't have to worry about the card economy and stuff like that. But it just shows like how much more powerful a 2-drop can be than something like this. All right, moving on. Venom Strike Trap Secret. When one of your minions is attacked, so it's got the snake trap effect, right? Same thing. Summon a 2/3 poisonous cobra. So this is pretty much on the same power level as the Hunter traps. So I do think it is a playable trap. It's fine. I don't think this is a staple where it goes into every Hunter deck or anything like that at all. It's just kind of fine. There's going to be turns where it's going to be really good, and there's going to be turns when it's going to be really bad. So just one of those things. I kind of like Snake Trap better because Snake Trap like combos with stuff like Scavenging Hyena, Cult Master. I mean, it's pretty fringe stuff, but I like Snake Trap a little better than this. This is probably better than Snake Trap, however, so something to keep in mind. If you have the choice between the two, on a pure power level standpoint, I think this is better than Snake Trap. Spirit Lash, one of the earliest cards revealed, so definitely a role player card. If you can take advantage of all the healing, now it's interesting. Does this heal all at once, or does it heal one at a time? Like you heal one, it depends, right? Like how it's coded. Like if this heals you one every time it does damage, maybe it doesn't because that would be too many animations. But that's a lot different than healing in bulk. Because if it heals one at a time, there are cards that like Light Warden even in the basic set where they can get out of control real quick, right? So Might depend on the coding of the card, but I still think this Whirlwind card that can heal for quite a bit, right? If the max board is 14, so this 2-mana card can heal you for 14. So that's pretty powerful. So something to look out for. I definitely think it's more of a role player card. Sort of replaces the Wild Pyromancer, right? So you're kind of getting a Wild Pyromancer here. Alright, moving on. Leeching Poison, 2 mana, rogue card, give your weapon lifesteal. I think this is bad. I'm not going to talk too much about this. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good design either. You're not really gaining life. You're kind of like mitigating life. So rogue kind of wants actual life gain. Like your weapon heals for twice the damage dealt. You know, something like that would be much cooler than just sort of, you know, erasing the damage, right? Like if you hit a 3/3 with your 3 weapon, you take 3, gain 3, so it's kind of a wash. Whereas if it was double, you gain 6 for a net of 3. Now it's pretty interesting, right? Or you go face, you gain 6. That's a big chunk of health. This is kind of just like meh. Rogue deck slots are real tight too, right? Like look at the miracle list. You can't just put random crap like this in your miracle deck. It is a spell, so that is something to keep in mind, and it's a cheap spell, so again, something to keep in mind. But rogues have a lot of cheap spells to choose from. All right, I'm not gonna talk about that card anymore. I'm kind of tired of it. All right, Defile, very cool card. Now deal 1 damage to all minions. If any die, cast this again. So very cool card. Like they were talking about, it's a testing card. You're trying to set up situations where this chains through the whole board. Unfortunately, Dreadsteed had to die for this card to exist. I'm not sure why they didn't just change the interaction between specifically this card and Dreadsteed, like they have been known to in the past, right? There's cards that interact differently, specifically with another card, but they just killed the Dreadsteed off. Basically, Dreadsteed says at the end of the turn it happens. So all the combos with Dreadsteed are pretty much gone. But anyway, this card is very cool. Definitely gonna try it out, see how it works out. It goes well with the more ping effects you have, right? So if you have little 1/1 guys, you know, you can throw them in to cascade the board, right? They're obviously gonna die, so you have to throw them in anyway. But you can set it up for 2 mana, right? So you can do this, try to clear the board, and then develop. So anytime you can do 2 things in one go like that, it's very powerful, right? Moving on, Dead Man's Hand. Shuffle a copy of your hand into your deck. Now this is very cool. I love this card. So it's basically the Jade Idol mechanic. You basically can chain your deck forever with 2 copies of these, right? You have a copy in your hand, cast Dead Man's Hand, your hand goes in plus another copy, and then you wait until you get the other hand, and you keep going forever. So a little slow thing to do, but very cool thing to do, right? Even with something as simple as Cthulhu, you know, you can keep putting Cthulhu's in your deck. If you just keep, you know, I don't know. Does that work? If you have Cthulhu in your hand, yeah, you put it in your deck, so you just have another Cthulhu. Yeah, that works. All right, pretty cool. So definitely a role player card. Like you need a deck for it, right? It's not good on its own. You need to be thinking about the long term for sure. So this card, next card, is a little bit hard for me to evaluate, not having seen the rest of the set. Of course, it is the Shaman card, the Epic Cryostasis. Give a minion +3/+3 and freeze it. So 2 things you kind of don't want to do to the same card. If you buff your own card, you don't want to freeze it, right? You want to hit people with it. If you freeze your opponent's card, you don't want to buff it, right? So it's a very push and pull card, and making it very hard to evaluate. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of synergies with freeze coming up here in Shaman specifically. That they're pushing the freeze mechanic. My instinct is that this is not good, not what you want to be doing, but there are freeze combos to come, and if you can live the dream, you can have a lot of fun. So pretty cool. Bring it on. Gain 10 armor. Reduce the cost of your minions in your opponent's hand by 2. Obviously, you can't cast this on turn 2 pretty much ever, so it's more of a long-term card. It is a powerful effect, right? You're gaining 10 armor. If it's in the late game, they have no cards in hand or low cards in hand where it doesn't matter. It's basically gain 10 armor. So I do think this is very playable. It's just one of those things you have to know that it's a dead card early, right? It's just absolutely dead early. And if you're in a control versus control matchup, they might have a full hand the whole game, right? You're playing Priest, you might never be able to cast this card, so that's something to consider. Maybe that's what makes it unplayable. So my first instinct was that it's playable because, you know, I just picture a situation where it's going to be good at some point, but there are decks that, you know, sort of the Reno style decks that just have large hands. They have so much discover stuff going on, Mage, Priest, Warlock. So dangerous card, and maybe it gets pushed out of the meta by those other control decks. So my first instinct was it's like a role player card, playable card. But now the more I think about it, it might be dead, and you don't want to have a dead card in your deck at all. So, but very interesting. I mean, it can be very powerful. It can absolutely win you the game against aggro decks. All right, Shallow Grave Digger. This is a card that we've seen very early on. I compared it to, I think, Egg Napper early on. I think I like Egg Napper even more just because you get that immediate tempo. Those 1/1 Raptors come out. This, you know, I don't think this is very good, and I don't, you know, maybe there's some death rattles coming up that it's just you just want to play it to get to that random death rattle, but you know, we haven't seen anything like that yet. So, like, if there's some super overpowered legendary in this set that has death rattle and the chance that you get it is, yeah, I don't see it happening. So I don't like this card at all. Here we go, Prince Haldarum. If your deck has no 3-cost cards, transform it into a 3/3 copy of a minion. So, yeah. So what you get is Faceless Manipulator. That's only a 3/3. And you have to warp your deck to do that. So I don't like it. I don't think it's good. I think you open this, you're going to be really disappointed. That's why I think it's terrible. Like, you open a legendary, you should not be disappointed. So it's bad design, and the strength is bad too. So I don't like it. You know, you have to go down the rabbit hole to think of a situation where, like, this is good for your deck, right? So I don't mind that those thought experiments and stuff like that, but don't make that a legendary. You know, make this a card epic where you can play, at least you can play 2 or something like that. So you can sort of, this sort of theme, the Prince theme, would seem to me to fit the epic slot more. You know, you get 2, you build your deck around it a little bit. You get to play 2 of them, you know, instead of just having the 1. All right, now here we come upon the first, I think, truly great card in the set, Plague Scientist. I am going to give this a 5-star. I think this works so well with pirates that it's just a must-play in Rogue. Like, you play a pirate, Patches comes out, and it's got poisonous. That's pretty crazy. So it does take 4 mana, right? You play either the 2/1 charge or the, you know, the Swashbuckler. So 4 mana, you get a pirate, you get Patches possibly charging out, and you get an Assassinate, right? So super strong. I do think this is a 5-star card. I'm going to put this in every Rogue deck imaginable because of specifically because of the pirate synergy. All right, moving on. Another good card. We got Mountain Fire Armor, very playable card. Your opponent is not going to, so it's death rattle if your opponent's turn. If it's your opponent's turn, you gain 6 armor. Now the 4 attack on this is sort of the friction point, right? If you're hitting your opponent in the head for 4 turn, they don't last very long, so they're not going to let you do that. Obviously, the big problem with this card is the card from the previous set, the very common Tar Creeper, right? 3/5 taunt matches up very well against this 4/3 for 3. Outside of that, though, you know, your opponent is not going to let you hit them in the head every turn for 4. So you will get the 6 armor, I think, almost a majority of the time with this card. But it's unfortunate that it matches up so poorly against a very common card at 3 mana, the Tar Creeper. But I do think this is very playable. Maybe not find a home because it's kind of at odds with itself, right? Like, it's an aggressively static card that also is defensively, you know, rewarding. But armor is armor. Armor is not health, right? Armor can go to 36 early in the game. instead of just getting it wasted on if it was healing. Here we go. Howling Commander, Battlecry, draw a Divine Shield minion from your deck. I really like this card here. You can play 2 of these and just Tyrion, and then just make it so you always get Tyrion, and then you can play Redemptions because you just know you're always gonna have Tyrion, and then you can play Getaway Kodo and try to cast Tyrion 5 times, and maybe you play N'Zoth and you get back a full board of Tyrions. I'm gonna make that deck. Are you guys gonna make that deck? Pretty simple, pretty awesome. Anytime this basically ups the number of specific cards you want. Like maybe you're a budget player and Sunwalker's your favorite card. Maybe you just play this guy with Sunwalkers and you play the Redemption, so you get a bunch of Sunwalkers back. So pretty powerful things you can do with this. On its own, the stats are fine, right? It's similar to a card previously out there, the 3 mana 2/2 Divine Shield Stealth guy. Not the best, not the worst. But this guy's good. I like this guy. I do not like the next card, Doomed Apprentice, a mage card, 3 mana, 3/2. So those stats are a death sentence. This card has to do something really good to see any play at all. Your opponent's spells cost 1 more. That's not good. It's fine. If it was a 3 mana 3/3, that's more interesting. If it was a 3 mana 3/4, now you got a good card. But the 3 mana 3/2 makes it terrible. Maybe you can play like 2 of these at once and then like copy it or something, but it's just so much work. I don't like the card at all. I think it's terrible. Moving on. Here's a 3-drop that you want to play. 3 mana 3/4. Now already that's good. Now let's look at what it does. Battlecry. If an enemy is frozen, draw a card. Very cool. So already it's a good body. You can get value out of it. The value, there is a frozen theme, freeze theme running through the set. So it's gonna activate more than it would in previous sets. Even if it activates only 20% of the time, I still think this is very much a playable card. Bear Shark, very cool art on this guy. Can't be targeted by hero powers. So the flavor involved with this, why can't it be targeted? Let's think about this for a second here. Maybe because it's half shark, it's like underwater, so you can't target it because it's underwater. I guess that's why. Not sure. Is this a reference to something in World of Warcraft? I haven't played World of Warcraft since like Cataclysm. So maybe these guys like are running around some zone where you kill 10 bear sharks, get the reward or whatever. I don't know. It seems totally made up, but who knows? They could have went further, right? They could have went like man, bear, pig, like the South Park reference. They could have added another animal in there. Like I guess because we have that theme with the Rexar coming up where you stitch animals together. So that's what's going on here, right? So maybe you get Rexar, you get this guy, and then you can stitch another guy onto it, right? So let's talk about the card. Can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. Now this card's very strong. However, it is in the 3 mana slot in Hunter. That's competing with Bow and Animal Companion. I don't think you play this. And also a secret card, which has synergies with cards coming. A nice little legendary coming up, right? So that 3/4 Cloaked Huntress that competes with that one too. So a lot of competition at 3 mana. That might be the death sentence for it. So this happens a lot. There's always these good Hunter cards at 3 mana. They just kind of don't see play, just because they're competing with Animal Companion and the like. So it is playable, but that doesn't mean you're going to see it at all, right? Alright, here's a very playable card, Shadow Blade. I like this card a lot. I'm going to give it a high rating. Battlecry, your hero is immune this turn. Now, I was talking about the lifesteal thing. It kind of is a neutral thing where you kind of hit something. You don't gain life, you don't lose life. This literally does that, but it comes on a good card, right? The Eagle Horn Bow stats, very, very playable, and more powerful in a row. What is not a good 3 mana weapon is Icebreaker. Destroy any frozen minion damaged by this. So you really, literally have to do that. You cannot use this as a weapon. I mean, you can spend 3 mana to do 1 damage. You can do that 3 times, but that blocks off your weapons. That blocks off your Jade Claws, right? That blocks off your... I guess there's not many other weapons being played right now in Standard, but it blocks off future weapons. I I don't like it. I think you take too much damage freezing big things and attacking with your head. Like we saw in the example when they showed us, the guy killed something and then he was like down to 12 against a mage with a full hand, and everyone was like, fireball, fireball, dead. And I think that's gonna happen if you base your deck around hitting stuff, big things with this weapon here. So I don't like this card. Who knows? I'll try it, I guess. I mean, there's gonna be a freeze deck. They're pushing this really hard, and usually what happens is if it doesn't catch on in this set, they're like, all right, they're not playing our frozen deck, guys. Let's keep adding cards until, you know, like with the discard stuff. They'll just keep adding stuff until you're like, all right, Blizzard. I guess the only time they failed was with Beast Druid, right? They kept adding those Beast Druid cards, and it just never kept on. Even with Menagerie Warden. Once Menagerie Warden was revealed, everyone was like, holy shit. All right, Blizzard, we get it. We're gonna play this. It didn't catch on, right? The Jade stuff was just better. All right, so moving on. Picking Abomination, another one of the early cards revealed. 4 mana, 5/6, Death Rattle, deal 5 damage to your minions. When I first saw the card, I assumed it was a battle cry, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So you have an empty board, you play a 4 mana, 5/6. Pretty cool, right? No, it's actually much worse. The Death Rattle means that your opponent just has an AoE sitting on your side of the board that they can, you know, trigger it at some point. So don't like this card at all. I don't think there's some cool like, yeah, it can pop your eggs and stuff, but there's better ways to do that. I don't like it. And not much to say. Moving on. Professor Putricide. Alright, now here we go. This card's very cool. After you play a secret, put a random hunter secret into the battlefield. 4 mana, 5/4, so already very good stats. You know, these stats are good. I do think they're good stats. They kill Tar Creepers. Put a lot of pressure on your opponent. That 5 damage makes a 4 mana 5/4 good, not great, good. So this combos, of course, with Cloaked Huntress extremely well. Turn 3, you play that 3/4 because it's overstated. It's likely to live, and then on turn 4 you play this, and all of a sudden, wow, you're playing Secret Hunter, right? Like the Mysterious Challenger. So if you have 2 secrets in your hand, they both cost 0. All of a sudden you play them both, you have 4 secrets. Now it is going to be a little bit tilting. If you're in that situation, you play your first secret, and the random one you get for free is the same one that's still in your hand, and then you can't play that one. So instead of getting 4 secrets, you only get 2. So that's a little unfortunate, little tilting there. The coolest thing about this card is that it's gonna make people play around cards that they don't normally have to play around. Stuff like Misdirection, stuff like Dark Trap. I'm not exactly sure if Dark Trap is still in standard. I know, of course, Misdirection is in the base set. So when this card comes down and a free secret comes down, you got to think about Misdirection. Very cool. Here we go. The final prince that we know of is revealed. Prince Valenar. Battlecry. If your deck has no 4-cost cards, gain Lifesteal and Taunt. It's a 4/4. So why doesn't this have Sen'jin Shieldbearer stats at least? Like, I get that it has lifesteal, so you gain more life. Like, theoretically, they need to attack into it twice, maybe, and then you gain 8 life. That's pretty good, but maybe they just attack with a 5/5, and your guy dies, and then you have, you know, you just warped your deck around this kind of like bad card because it's a 4/4 for 4. You don't play a 4/4 for 4 ever. So why are you gonna, you know, make your deck worse, presumably, than it would be for a 4 mana 4/4. So you're gonna really need the lifesteal to do that, and you're really banking on the fact that it's gonna at least activate twice. I don't like it. I do not like it. I think you're gonna open this card and you're gonna be disappointed, and that makes the design. That's why the design score is so bad, because you should not open a legendary and feel bad about it. Blizzard, come on now. Figure this out. Boogie Monster is not funny. It's sad, right? Like, yeah, it's funny in sort of a sad way. When you open Boogie Monster, you're like, God damn it, I opened Boogie Monster. They're like trolling you, but they don't have to, right? They're making a lot of money with this game. They don't need to do that. All right, moving on. Cool card, 4 mana, 1/4, Death Rattle, Meat Wagon. Summon a minion from your deck with less attack than this minion. All right, I like this card a lot. I like the design. I do think it's playable. Just because of Doomsayer. What does your opponent do when you play this? Like, what do? They can't kill it because a Doomsayer could come out and they just lose their board. Like, I guess they kill it, and if Doomsayer comes out, then you get a free Doomsayer activation and you get to start fresh on a new board. If they leave it in play, then you buff it and you get a huge tempo play. There's a card coming up, a neutral card that's going to go really well with this Meat Wagon, right? The guy that gives +4/+4. They don't want to kill the Meat Wagon. They leave it in play. You play this on the Meat Wagon, and all of a sudden you're in Value Town. So, because of the existence of exactly Doomsayer, this is a very cool card. I don't know what you do when it hits the board. Very cool. This is gonna see play. I'm positive it's gonna see play. At least for me. I'm gonna make the decks, guys. Don't worry. All right, moving on. Gastly Conger, another cool design. I like this a lot. 4 mana, 2/6. This is the stat point where it's not an embarrassing stat point. 4 mana, 2/6. It sort of takes two cards to kill it. They might not die, but it's gonna take 2 attacks to kill it generally. All right, moving on. I like that card. I'm definitely gonna try it and stuff. But it's a role player, right? Like it's not a staple or anything. 4 mana, Corpse Taker, Battlecry, gain Taunt if your deck has a Taunt minion, and you repeat with both Divine Shield, Lifesteal, and Wind Fury. So you gotta build your deck around this guy. Now, is that worth it? The problem with this guy is that if you kind of just look at it, it's not much different than a Silver Moon Guardian a lot of the time. A lot of times, it's just going to be a 4 mana, 3/3 Divine Shield. Now, Lifesteal, it will at least give you 3 health. That's not nothing, right? That makes it better than, obviously, Silver Moon Guardian. If your deck has, so it's a condition that happens when you play it. So if you draw your only, let's say, Lifesteal card, then I guess it doesn't get Lifesteal. But presumably you're designing your deck around this guy. So it's hard to judge this, right? Because we don't know all the information. We don't know what sort of Wind Fury stuff is out there, if it's neutral or class specific. There's quite a few Divine Shield things going on in Paladin already, so that's not a problem in Paladin. Lifesteal, there's of course a charged Lifesteal in Paladin that's coming up next, which I think is quite playable. So right now it looks like a Paladin card. Wind Fury, what are you gonna Wind Fury in Paladin, right? It's hard to say. Shaman has Alakir, which has Taunt, Divine Shield, and Wind Fury, so you're kind of getting all. But if you draw him, then and you base your whole deck around that, then all of a sudden you're playing a 4 mana 3/3 Lifesteal. Like that's not great, right? So I'm going to say this is unplayable, but I could be wrong. Could easily be a role player. But I just think that in too many situations it's just kind of act like a Silver Moon Guardian, and that the card is nowhere near constructed playable, right? Could be wrong. Could be very wrong about this. It could be everywhere. But my thought is that it's I don't think you want to warp your deck around this kind of thing. All right, moving on. Chillblade Champion, charge, Lifesteal, 3/2, 4 mana. I think this is good. You're paying 1 for the you're kind of paying 1 for the Lifesteal. But if you hand buff this thing, which I think that's where it's going to fit in hand buff decks, you attack, it lives, you attack again. That's a huge life swing. It just represents a lot of life. Charge minions when they're buffed just get much better. So I think this is very playable. Alright, moving on to Eternal Servitude, another Resurrect type card, basically a Resurrect, except you now can discover the minion that comes back. So very cool upgrade to Resurrect. I say upgrade because I'm not sure it's better than Resurrect. Resurrect is a huge tempo play. You can sort of sculpt your hand and deck around it. But this is very, very powerful at the end of the game, right? 4 mana, you get something back. Very big, very dangerous. So I do think this is going to be played. You're going to see this quite a bit here, I think. It is not a tempo card, though, right? Like, you play a 3-drop, your 3-drop dies. You play this on turn 4, you get your 3-drop back. Not really tempo, right? So it is a late game card. Moving on, 4 mana, Paladin Weapon, Light Sorrow. After a friendly minion loses Divine Shield, gain 1 attack. I do not like this card at all. I think it's terrible. It's terrible for a lot of reasons. The first is like it should cost like there's weapons that cost 1 with this stat, you know, 1 and 4. So what are you doing? Like, you know, are you just building this up and then you can't play any other weapons? Like, you take True Silvers out of your deck to play this? Why aren't you playing Rallying Blade with Divine Shield minions? There's so many things wrong with this card that I just know it's terrible. I just know it is terrible. You know, like the best case scenario is like you have a full board of Divine Shield minions. You play this, you lose all your Divine Shield minions, and you start going face, I guess, for like theoretically, it could be if you had a full board of 7, you lose all the Divine Shields, it's an 8/4 weapon, right? And then you just go face for the win. But I mean, you could just Rallying Blade, buff all your guys, go face with your guys, put the onus on your opponent to break your shields, which is the annoying thing to do, and you hit with a Rallying Blade. So it's like, even in the situations where this is good, Rallying Blade is better, I'm pretty sure. And then you basically have to take True Silver out of your deck to play this, because it has 4 charges on it. If you want to actually use all 4 charges, when do you have time to play True Silver? I don't get why you would ever put this in your deck. It's an epic. I think it belongs at epic just because it's so narrow. So many, so it's fine. The design port is not the worst because it's just not costed right. Like, I like the design in theory. It's just awkward, and that's what a lot of epic cards are. Awkward, right? Alright, moving on. Another 4-cost weapon, Blood Razor. This is a warrior weapon, of course. Battlecry and Death Rattle, you get a Whirlwind. So, obviously not nearly as good as Death Bite. This really depends on how badly you want a Whirlwind effect. Because if you don't want a Whirlwind effect, I don't like this card at all. But if a Whirlwind effect is good, it's pretty great, in fact. So, we're going to have to see the rest of the set. Right now, I don't see a reason to play it. From the cards we've seen so far, I don't see a reason to play it. So I'm a little bit skeptical of this card. It does theoretically attack for 3, but you're paying 4 for that. So this Whirlwind really needs to do work. So definitely a role player. No matter what, this is going to be a role player card, right? Like, there are decks that all they want is Whirlwinds. They're going to love putting this in the deck. Maybe in Wild, with patrons and stuff. I guess patron is still legal? No. I don't even know. No. Is it? Patron was Blackrock Mountain. Right? So no, patrons are not legal in standard. In Wild, maybe you just play this as the 3rd Death Bite. I don't think you want to play 2 of these and 2 Blood Razors. Maybe a 3rd Death Bite is kind of what you want to be doing. But nowhere near the power level of Death Bite. Anyway, moving on. Voodoo Hexer. I like this card. 5 mana, 2/7 taunt. So it's almost, no, the stats aren't good, but they're almost good. And because of the effect, it's quite powerful. 2/7 taunt, freeze any character damaged by this minion. So as long as they don't attack through with one guy, it's pretty good, right? You're gonna freeze a bunch of stuff. It'd be much better with 3 attack, right? Like, much better. But I still think this is pretty cool. So again, at least it's going toward the freezing theme going in Shaman. I don't like the weapon. I like this one a lot better though. It's hard to say. It's definitely not a staple. It's definitely a role player card. Like, you're not going to ever just put this in every Shaman deck because of the power level alone, right? Like, you got to take advantage of this freezing stuff in some way. Like, yeah. So I like it though. Alright, Fate Spinner. Choose a Death Rattle secretly. Very cool. Secretly, right? Deal 3 damage to all minions or give them +2/+2. So, it's hard to evaluate this card because it's so different than anything we've seen. I think a lot of it hinges on how good the Death Rattle Kill Everything is, because that's sort of the mode that I think more safely goes into your deck, like as a board clear. If you're playing this for the buff, specifically for the buffing, you just kind of give your opponent the opportunity to get that buff first, and then kill all your guys, and then kill it. Like it's awkward, right? Like I think if you're playing this for the buffing, it's super awkward. However, if the deal 3 damage to all minions is good on its own, then the card, you know, sees play. But it's really hard to evaluate, but I really like the design. Very cool design. Let's say it's a role player. Like, I don't think the Death Rattle is good enough just to be a staple, just to put in your Druid control deck, just to delay board clear people. Like, I don't think it's that good on its own, but definitely a role player card. Cool card. Moving on. 5 mana, 5/5 dragon. Already, that's pretty cool because it's not something we've ever seen before. A dragon with 5 attack, 5 power, a neutral one anyway. At the end of your turn, give another random friendly minion +3 attack. So already you're getting 8/5 worth of power and toughness for 5, and the very, very important dragon tag. So I think the dragon tag is what is key to this card. However, it doesn't say battle cry. This just keeps happening, guys. So very snowbally card here. I do like this card a lot, and yeah, it just keeps going. It just keeps going off. Keeps going off. Very cool. So outside of dragon decks, do you play this as sort of a? It happens at the end of your turn, which is important. Like, it happens every turn, but it's not a battle cry. If it was a battle cry, maybe it's too good. It's probably too good. Yeah. So it's gonna be hard to sort of get the effect, get use of the 3 attack, right? Because if you have like a 1/1 and you make a 4/1, well, they can ping your 4/1 or whatever. But it makes it more threatening, of course. If you have a taunt and you play this, like let's say you have a Tar Creeper, or no, let's say you have like a that Shaman one we just saw, the 5 mana 2/7, right? You just have that, and then you play this. All of a sudden, you have a 5/7 taunt, much more, threatening. So this works really well with taunt minions specifically. Interesting. Something as innocuous as like in Wild a Noyotron. You play a Noyotron, you play this, you get a 4/2 Divine Shield taunt, and you're hiding your guy behind this. You're hiding the Scalebane behind the Divine Shield taunt. So very powerful in taunt decks now. I like this guy a lot. What am I gonna rate this? I think I'm gonna rate this a 4. I think this card. You kind of have to design your deck around it, so maybe it doesn't just get a 4, but like an arena 4 maybe. Like it's super strong. Definitely gonna mess around with this guy a lot. I really like this guy. Alright, moving on to a 5-drop to a couple 5-drops that I don't really like. The first legendary Bolvar, Fireblood. So Bolvar's back. I believe Bolvar dies at the hands of Arthas. Again, my lore, I don't know too much. I think Arthas kills him at some point. So he's back here. Divine Shield 1/7. After friendly minion loses Divine Shield, gain +2 attack. So at the very least, when he loses his Divine Shield, he becomes a 3/7. My first instinct is that he's bad, and I don't like the design because if I think he's bad, then I don't want to open what I think could be a bad legendary. So it might be the kind of card that you never want to craft, but you're fine opening because hey, you can mess around with this card that you otherwise would never play with. So I don't mind legendaries like that, but he might be close to sort of bad status. What's the best case scenario? You have 2 Divine Shields minions on the board already. You play him. You take off the Divine Shields. He becomes a 5/7 Divine Shield. And then when his Divine Shield gets knocked off, he becomes a 7/7. That's quite good, in fact. So, what if you just have 1 Divine Shield? Well, it becomes a 3/7 Divine Shield, and it becomes a 5/7 for 5. So I mean, he ramps up pretty damn quick, especially if you get 2 activations of him. There's no shielded mini bot in standard right now. There's a Cthulhu card, the 4 mana guy, but again, that's kind of a mismatch of things, right? You're not playing a Divine Shield Cthulhu deck, I don't think. There's the new card, the 3 mana 2/2. It draws more Divine Shields. Could draw Bolvar. But wouldn't you rather just draw Tyrion? Like, I think with that card, I'm gonna go in the Tyrion direction, just to make sure I have Tyrion and do redemption and stuff. Get a bunch of Tyrions. So yeah, my instinct is that he's not playable, but the conditions to where he's good. Like if you can break a couple of Divine Shields, and the turn you play him, he's good. But that might be living the dream a little bit too much. Turn 4, you can play the Darkshire guy, play the 1 mana, make 2 guys, and that leads right into him. That's interesting. But usually you want to play that card on turn 1, but it does combo well with the. So something to think about. The Darkshire guy works really well with this. In WoW, things get more interesting because of Muster for Battle, right? Like you play Darkshire, Muster for Battle. Or Darkshire plus the, make a bunch. Like, you can get a lot of Divine Shield minions in Wild. But I think, again, in Wild there's less spots for just random 5/5s that are kind of just big. So a lot of rambling for this guy. Again, my instinct is he's bad, but there are situations where he could be, pretty good. But overall, I think he's pretty bad. Alright, moving on to another card I think is pretty bad. Blood Clean Lanathel. 5 mana 1/6 lifesteal. So similar to a card in the past, the demon, the 1/4 for 2 that had lifesteal. This one you can buff by discarding things. But if that's your plan, what if you just discarded her? Like you can't choose what you discard, and that's the whole problem with discard. So I don't like the design because it's a legendary. I don't like that they're forcing this discard deck through all these legendaries. Like, we're gonna assume in the next set there's gonna be another 1 or 2 legendaries that deal with discarding. So if you want to try the discard deck, you got to make 5 legendaries to see if it's even good. Like, ugh, I don't like that. Yeah, I just don't like her. I don't like her at all. Moving on. 5 mana, Spreading Plague. Summon a 1/5 Scarab with Taunt if your opponent has more minions. Cast this again. So if they have a board of 7, you have nothing. Cast this, you get 7 1/5 taunts, which is pretty crazy. The more likely situation is they have about 3 minions. Maybe you have 1. Maybe you trade your minion in, and then you get 3 1/5 taunts for 5. If you just count all the power and toughness of that, you're getting 3/15 taunt for 5. Obviously, probably not as good as an actual 3/15 taunt because it makes trading much harder for your opponent. But this is just powerful, right? Like, this is just powerful. Once you get 3 or more of these 1/5 taunts, you're getting a lot of value for your money. I will think this is going to see a lot of play. Moving on. Nerubian Unraveler, 6 mana 5/5 spells, cost 2 more. Interesting to note that this is not your opponent's spells, it's all spells. The problem with this card is that you just don't have room in your deck for these kind of 6 mana, kind of whatever guys like that are good in certain situations. Like, I'd much rather this be a 5 mana 5/5. Look at something like Naga Sea Witch, where powerful effect, 5 mana 5/5. It didn't see a lot of play whatsoever, but so why not just make this a 5 mana 5/5 spell to cost 2 more? Like you can only have so much room for 6 drops, and I don't think this does enough. I don't think it's good at all. Moving on. 6 mana Necrotic Geist. Whenever one of your other minions dies, summon a 2/2 ghoul. Interesting, but it's a 6 mana 5/3. So you're kind of trading in presumably small things to get more small things. That's not something you really want to do in constructed, because you know, you're just walking in AoE. He himself has an AoEable body. However, he is going to be crazy in arena. If you have complete board control, play this guy. You trade your stuff, you get 2/2s. The next turn, you trade the 2/2s, you get more 2/2s. It's like your opponent is going to pull their hair out of their head, and it might lead to a lot of instant concedes. So this is one of those instant concede cards if you don't have an answer immediately for it in arena. In constructed, Cult Master has always been on the fringe of playability. I love Cult Master. I always try to jam him into decks to do stuff, but he's not great. Cult Master's not great, and I think you want to be drawing. You want to be using. If this is good and constructed, I think Cult Master's better. Again, I don't think you want to be trading small bodies in for more small bodies in constructed. Moving on. 6 mana 4/4 Morobbi. Morobbi. Whenever another minion is frozen, add a copy of it to your hand. So the effect is super powerful. Is it worth playing a 6 mana 4/4 though? That you would have to have, like, you have to get immediate value. Like, you have to play this and then freeze something or two things. But then you kind of need something that freezes things on the board. So you kind of need that taunt guy already. But a 2/7 taunt doesn't really hack and freeze things very well without, you know, losing value. Like if they have a 5/5, do you really want to throw your 2/7 into a 5/5? Yeah, you get a free card, but it is a tempo loss, right? So it's a value card. My instinct is that it is not good, but again, if you open this, it's cool enough to where you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna try this deck. So that means the design is good, but I don't know if the card is good. Again, it could just be a role. I think at most it's a role player. I don't think this is going to be a deck defining, archetype defining deck or anything going forward, but it is definitely a role player in the freeze deck if that's a thing. Alright, moving on. Deathstalker Rex, 6 mana. So you get a Consecrate and a Shield block for 6. So if you kind of add those two together, you're paying 4 for Consecrate. You're paying 2 for I mean, you can think of it two ways, right? You could say you're paying 5 for Consecrate, you're paying 2 for Shield block. I think in a non-warrior class, 2 for 5 armor is a pretty fair deal. So I think you're getting your money's worth for 6. So that alone makes it, I think, a cool card, because at the very least you're getting sort of value from the spell. Of course, you're going to get a new hero power. It's an infinite value hero power, right? Every turn you can make an amalgamation beast. So I do think this is very much playable. Is this something you want to do in Hunter? Well, not yet, right? Like, Control Hunter is still the dream, but it's good to see cards like this in the game, so we can keep dreaming about those Control Hunter lists, right? I like this card. Moving on, Bone Mare. So this common might see a lot of constructed play. I think this is almost like a neutral Firelands Portal, right? Because you're getting that kind of 5/5 random body, and you're kind of killing something. You're kind of doing 5 damage, right? Because even if you just have a 1/1, you make a 5/5, you go into something like a Firelands Portal. But the upside is much bigger than Firelands Portal, right? Because you could play this on a 4/4, you get an 8/8 taunt, you could hit something, you go face, and then you have an 8/8 taunt to hide your 5/5 behind. It's just super strong, right? Like, 7 mana is kind of a dead zone since Dr. Boom has left the format. Like, I can absolutely see this being played and constructed. I do think this is a 4-star card in constructed. The design is fine. I mean, the flavor, I don't know what's going on. Like, does the flavor make any sense? It's kind of this little skeleton horse guy. So why that gives something 4/4 and taunt, I don't know. But is Bone Mare like Arthas's? Maybe that's what it is. Is Bone Mare like Arthas's horse or something? Right? I don't know. It's not a legendary though. Maybe that's Arthas's horse, and that's why he's so powerful. Like, you look at the picture. The picture's kind of this scrawny little horse. Like, he's got glowing hooves and stuff. But why is this guy so powerful? Interesting. What else to talk about this card? I think there's a lot to talk about this card. How about Meat Wagon in this card, right? I was talking about the Doomsayer thing. Your opponent is going to be scared of Doomsayer when you play Meat Wagon, because they're going to think, oh shit, if I kill this Meat Wagon, Doomsayer pops out. I can't kill the Doomsayer presumably, and I just lose my board, or I can't, you know, I can't develop like I want. So maybe I'll just leave this Meat Wagon out there. You play Bone Marrow on Meat Wagon, all of a sudden the Death Rattle doesn't get a Doomsayer, it gets something, you know, spicy, right? So it's 5 or more attack. What's 5 or more? Who knows? Something good, right? Alright, so Bone Marrow I think is quite good. Again, very much like a neutral Firelands Portal. Very backbreaking in that way, right? Alright, moving on. 7 mana. Abominable Bowman. Very cool wording on this instead of Abominable Snowman. So it's a picture of this abomination guy with a bow. Is someone casting? Someone on is he like a Master Blaster going on thing? I can't tell in the picture if there's like some guy on top of him. There's some sort of, yeah, I can't tell. Can't tell, but very cool. Hunter card, 7 mana. Again, there's a hole at 7 mana. 7 mana. Now, what's the dream of? The dream is pretty obvious, right? You play Highmane on 6. You attack with Highmane. They kill your Highmane. You play this on 7, and you randomly get back your Highmane. Maybe you construct your deck to where this only hits Highmane. Maybe you play that secret deck with Barnes and Highmane. So the only target for Barnes is the Old God, Yasharj, and Highmane, and then you play this. But then it could get, this could come out of Barnes too. So maybe you need more beasts, so this isn't dead with Barnes. But again, it's something to think about. Summon a random beast. But yeah, it's obviously curves right after Highmane, right? You play Highmane, you play this, and hopefully good things happen. So very, very strong card. A lot of decks don't really have good answers, and the one that comes to mind is Warrior. Like, what if you play Highmane and then play this against a Warrior? Like, can they ever win a control game, right? I don't think so. Alright, moving on. I think this is good. I do like the design too. Like 7 mana 6/7 is just good enough to be relevant. Like you know, War Golem is not good, but when you get something for free like this, it could even chain into more. Like this could chain into just something as innocuous as Kindly Grandmother, and then that Kindly Grandmother dies and you get another. Like it just keeps your board super sticky. Very cool. Moving on. Sindragosa, Mage, Legendary, 8 mana, 8/8. Now here is a design that's great because you're always gonna be happy to open Sindragosa, right? This is crazy. Look how much value you get. These summon frozen champions, these O1s that you can ping off with your hero power, give you random legendaries. So much value with this, man. 3 legendaries for the price of 1, almost, right? Very cool card. It's a dragon. Get that dragon synergy going. Very awesome card. You put this in every Mage deck? No, of course not. It's an 8 mana 8/8 on its own. It doesn't exactly do anything when it hits the board, but it is very much playable because of how powerful it is, right? Moving on. Hadronox? Hadronox? 9 mana. 9 mana is pretty awkward, right? Alright, 9 mana, Death Rattle, summon your taunt minions that die this game. So you just get all the taunts back, like a N'Zoth. So that's very powerful. The problem is he doesn't have taunt. If he had taunt, he'd be insane, right? Like he'd be pretty damn insane. But because he doesn't have taunt, you have to figure out a way to kill him. So how are you gonna kill him? Well, he curves into Deathwing. You play this, you play Deathwing, you get a bunch of taunts. That'll win you a game for sure. So maybe that alone is enough reason to mess around with this guy. What can you do? You could naturalize him, I guess, right? That's kind of interesting, but your opponent draws cards. Like, you're doing a lot of work. Isn't the N'Zoth is better at that point? Probably. Maybe you play both him and N'Zoth, and you play a bunch of Death Rattle taunts, so you have more N'Zoths in your deck. You could play him, and you could do a flip. You could turn him into a 7/3, attack something, and get a bunch of taunts. So I kind of like that. In fact, the problem is you're playing a 9 mana card that does absolutely nothing, right? It's just a 3/7, totally normal. So that makes me think this is unplayable. That does not mean you should not play it, right? Constructed unplayable does not mean you should make some fun decks with cards like these. So that's why I like the design. Because when you open this, yeah, you get that feeling of, oh, this is not really, you know, viable in tier 1 decks or whatever. But you're like, but at least I can make this fun deck, right? All right, moving on. All right, moving on to the final card for today, Frost Lich Jaina, the second Death Knight card that we've seen so far. This was actually leaked, so it's a confirmed card. And when it was leaked, I believe the consensus was that it was fake. I think the reasoning behind it because it was like people didn't like it, right? It didn't seem very good. I don't think this is a very good card. In fact, 9 mana, you get 5 armor, you get battle cry, 3/6 water elemental. So unlike the hunter card where you got a good deal, or you got a fair deal for your consecrate plus shield block, for this water elemental shield block, you're paying 9 for 6 mana worth of stuff. Right, so you're paying 3 more than the hunter version. So the hunter version is a pushed card, whereas this is not a pushed card. It's pretty unfortunate that it's 9 mana, so you can't even use your new fancy hero power the same turn that you play this. The new hero power is called Icy Touch. Hero power, deal 1 damage, so just like your regular ping, but if it kills a minion, summon a water elemental. So that's not the hardest thing in the world, but it's not something that you can do every turn. So a lot of times you just have a basically normal mage hero power. When you can kill things, that is powerful, no doubt about it. You get a free water elemental, 4.5 mana worth of stuff for free. Is good. I just don't think Mage needs this card. If you want to play grindy Mage, you do not need this card. You can, especially with the reveal of sindragosa in Mage, like, isn't that just way better than trying to do this? Like, instead of getting a water elemental in the late game, you get an 8/8 in the late game, and 2 more legendaries coming randomly. So I do not think this will see much play again, but that does not mean it's bad design. If you open this, just like all of these things, I'm sure you're gonna, in a little bit feel happy that, sweet, I can play this Death Knight version of my class. So the design is good, but the power level pretty bad. Alright, thanks for staying with me if you're still here. I will do more of these reviews. Maybe I'll just wait until the whole set is out and I'll do a whole set review. What's more likely is that I'll do a part 2 and then I'll do a part 3 to conclude everything. But possibly, I think 4 is the most I'll do. I kind of want to get big chunks of cards instead of doing one a daily video. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I will see you out there in the Frozen Throne. Hopefully coming shortly, right? The leaked release date is like early August. So who knows if that's true? But they are starting to ramp out the card releases, so maybe it is true. Maybe we're gonna get this in early August, but who knows? Let's see. All right, see you guys later. Thanks for making it to the end of the video, guys. I have links here for more content, and if you would like to see the channel grow, please click that subscribe button in the middle. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.